So we're about a week away from WrestleMania 31, and I know a lot of fans have been complaining about the build-up to this year's WrestleMania. It doesn't really feel that special. Only a few couple of matches to really look forward to. You know, Sting, Triple H, Undertaker, and Bray Wyatt. But pretty much the build-up hasn't been as good as the years before. But I decided to do a review of an old WrestleMania, one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time, and it's WrestleMania 6. Now, this DVD I purchased from Walmart a couple years ago. They were selling the WrestleManias in single packs. So this is WrestleMania 6. It took place on April 1st, 1990. Now, you have to understand, back in the day, you know, I don't want to... Wrestling was different back in like the early 80s and early 90s. The pay-per-views just felt special. They felt very important. Especially not just WrestleManias, but, you know, Survivor Series, SummerSlams. All those pay-per-views really felt special. Not like today, the way the business is now, it's changed. It's more of TV. It's more of ratings, like Raw. And WWE is pretty much out of the pay-per-view industry, really. They're more now promoting the network. And basically those pay-per-views just seem to be Raw without commercials. That's just my opinion. And now you talk about the different eras of wrestling. I have to say, for me personally, my favorite era, and a lot of people like the Attitude Era, but my favorite was the 1988 to 1992. I think for me, I love that era. Wrestling was very important in that product. You had colorful characters, gimmicks, comic book characters, you would say. Now, these characters, like comic book characters, you can market with toys. Nowadays, you don't really see that. Not much gimmicks. The wrestlers are more serious now. Not much characters. All right, so get to this review. As you can see, this is the side view. This is the back view of Hulk Hogan. Now look at this disc. So I watched this. You actually have to turn the disc over for part 2 of this because it's like a long event. So not all the matches are in disc 1. There's only one disc, but you have to flip it over. But look at the matches they list on. They don't list all the matches on here, but look, the title versus title match, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. Then the $1 Million Championship match, Ted DiBiase versus Jake the Snake Roberts. The mixed tag team, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire against Macho Man and Queen Sherry. And then they put down Ravishing Rick Rude versus Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Of all the other matches on the card, I don't know why they put Ravishing Rick Rude and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. It wasn't like it was like a main event match. I didn't even mention over here, like it's the Ultimate Challenge when WWE Champion Hulk Hogan and Intercontinental Champion Ultimate Warrior collide with both titles at stake. WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Superfly Snuka competes in his first WrestleMania match against Ravishing Rick Rude. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe back in the day, Jimmy Superfly Snuka was a big top guy. I just don't remember him ever being really a top guy. Anyway, let's get to review. So this took place April 1st, 1990. It was the first WrestleMania that took place overseas. Not overseas. I'm sorry. In Canada. So it was at the Toronto, Ontario, and it was at the Sky Dome. Yep, the Sky Dome. Just make sure I got it right. All right, so this was also the last WrestleMania for Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse the Body Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon did the commentating, so this was his last WrestleMania. He would go on to WCW. All right. Now, what I noticed with this disc is that a lot of the music got redubbed with this other music, like the American Dreams music got redubbed. I don't know why they changed it. I thought WWE owns the rights to that music. I don't know. The Big Boss Man's music was different. Demolition's music was different. So that was disappointing because I kind of enjoyed Demolition's music, but it was changed for some reason on this DVD. So you get 15 matches. Can you believe that? 15 matches? Okay, so you start off with Rick Martel versus Coco Beware. Back in the day, with matches with these pay-per-views, is that they build up the cards. So you would have the low mid-card wrestlers start off in the first couple of matches, and then you build the card up to the main event. At the time, Rick Martel was doing the model gimmick. Now, I don't understand why they didn't do Rick Martel versus Tino Santana, because the year before they had Rick Martel turned on Tino Santana, so I don't know why they didn't do that. Match number 2, Demolition defeated the Colossal Connection. So it was basically Andre the Giant's last pay-per-view, last wrestling pay-per-view that he wrestled in. At the end of the match, he kind of redeems himself and turns on Bobby the Brain Heenan. We have Earthquake versus Hercules. Basically, they were at the time, 1990. They were setting up Earthquake to be feuding with Hulk Hogan, so they were trying to make him look strong. So he basically squashed Hercules. Brutus Beefcake defeated Mr. Perfect. Roddy Piper and Bad News Brown, classic match. It was the time when Piper had half of his face black, and that was for paint. That was pretty cool. We had the Hart Foundation versus Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zuko. I don't know. But that was actually a really quick match. That match only lasted, on here it said, about 19 seconds. But they kind of foreshadowed that the Hart Foundations were in line for the tag title shot after, and eventually they would, I think, win the titles at SummerSlam '90 against Demolition. A lot of filler matches on this card. You have the Barbarian against Tino Santana, and then you have one of the main events. I would say one of the main matches on the card: Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire against Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. Randy Savage was just amazing wrestler. I mean, then we had the Orient Express against the Rockers, Jim Duggan versus Dino Bravo, and then another big match on here: Ted DiBiase against Jake Roberts, Big Boss Man against Akeem. So I guess they used to be a tag team, the Twin Towers, and they were feuding. Rick Rude against Jimmy Snuka. That match only lasted 4 minutes. A lot of these matches, I mean, I'm looking at here on Wikipedia, they were under 10 minutes, really. And then you have the big one, the main event, the Ultimate Challenge, the Ultimate Warrior against Hulk Hogan, and that was about 22 minutes. Probably one of the, really good match between the two. I just remember, I got into wrestling back in 1991, so it was a little after WrestleMania 7. So I kind of missed everything that happened before, so I had to catch up through, VHS at the time, because there was no YouTube. And I remember my dad telling me about how, oh yeah, the Ultimate Warrior fought Hulk Hogan at a WrestleMania, and I was really confused because I was well, they're both good guys. I mean, was the Ultimate Warrior a bad guy? So I didn't realize, this was pretty much the first WrestleMania with WWE or WWF that two babyfaces main evented a pay-per-view. And at the time, WWE was trying to go into a new direction. They were trying to build the new star. They felt that the Ultimate Warrior was going to take them to the next level in the 90s. He was going to be the star of the 90s, which is Hulk Hogan dominated the 80s. Ultimate Warrior was going to dominate the 90s. As we know, that didn't actually happen. So, but at the time, they were building the Ultimate Warrior up. I really believe this was a really good build-up pay-per-view. I mean, it was built around the Ultimate Challenge. Definitely enjoyed, with wrestling, I do enjoy the build-up. When you think about WrestleMania, the main event has to be built up for weeks, something that you cannot miss. So I really thought this was a really good pay-per-view. It should be in any wrestling fan's collection. And again, I do enjoy the early era of WWE. I would say I would call 1988 to 1992 the second wave of Hulk Hogan era. So you had the first era was 1984 to 1988, and then 88 to 92 was, I would say, the second era of Hulk Hogan. And then because everything the pay-per-views, the WrestleManias, all revolved around Hulk Hogan. And then 93 was kind of the transitional year. And 94, the New Generation era, and then eventually we get into the Attitude Era a couple years after. But definitely worth checking out. I do like the cover on here. I like how it's the both of them are featured on the cover, and they're doing the test of strength in the match. So this was actually their only good match. I mean, don't watch the Halloween Havoc 1998 match between those two. It was just horrible. But you definitely should check this one out.